time to continue this conversation with another Golf Today roundtable. We welcome in golfchannel.com senior writers Rex Hoggard and Ryan Lavender. Lav, I want to start with you. Let's talk about Keegan Bradley and what he got out of last week in Napa. From your perspective, from what you saw from the leaderboard, could Keegan have asked for anything better than what he got last week at the Pro Court Championship?
No, I don't think so, Damon. I mean, 10 of 10 players making the cut at Silverado. And again, it's really hard to extrapolate what the performance at the Pro Court Championship is going to mean for the Ryder Cup. But I think it's just important that they did it. They did it in general. Just showing up, just getting competitive reps, just taking a page from what Scottie Scheffler said, where he needed to treat the Ryder Cup like it's a major championship. If he was playing the Masters or the U.S. Open, he would never go 5 weeks between starts heading into a major championship. There's no reason why the Ryder Cup should be treated any different. I think from a performance standpoint, from a leaderboard standpoint, from a confidence standpoint, from a team-building standpoint, getting Bryson DeChambeau in the room, integrated with his teammates, even though he was not in the field, I think were all really important exercises. Arrows pointing up for Team USA. But on the other side, Damon, I think the same case can be made for the Europeans. And Luke Donald, you look overall at what these two performances, these two tournaments meant. 20 of the 21 players made the cut. 7 of those went for top 10s. 12 of those went for top 20s. These are two teams that are trending really nicely. It certainly feels like we're in store for an all-timer here.
Rex, speaking of the integration of Bryson into the team, since he doesn't actually see these guys a lot on a week-in, week-out basis, you were alongside us yesterday when Todd Lewis put forward the theory that the surprising partnership will be Bryson alongside Scottie Scheffler. Are you buying that, or do you have a surprise partnering of your own that you think is more likely?
Eamon, I'm not allowed to raise my hand during these roundtables, but I was trying to yesterday when Todd Lewis was making that comment, because I guess I can kind of see it. I would argue that there's already kind of some built-in pairings that Keegan Bradley is clearly leaning towards. Last week when we asked him, he said he was about 90% of the way to having his pairing set, at least for Friday's alternate shot format, and we all know how important that's going to be. I will say, being in Napa last week, talking with some players, trying to figure out exactly what the captain and the vice captains are thinking, I would lean in a different direction. I think Bryson DeChambeau, Todd did bring up a good point. We shouldn't expect to see him an alternate shot. That golf ball he uses probably isn't a golf ball that any of the 11 members of Team USA are going to have any interest in. In his defense, I can say the same thing about Ben Griffin. He also plays a golf ball that no one else really plays on the PGA Tour. So that's a hurdle the captain probably doesn't want to get past. So you're going to relegate him on some level to 4-ball. And I think a really good option that came up last week in Napa was him and Cameron Young. They both hit it about the same distance, and that's going to lead to some familiarity, at least between the two players. And also, imagine what that would do for the crowd. We know Bryson DeChambeau is going to be one of the crowd favorites at Bethpage Black, and certainly Cameron Young, who is the native son. He's going back to a place he's won before, a place that he essentially grew up on. It could be a very compelling pairing.
Lav, you weren't with us yesterday. You were wrapped up in bed crying about your Jags having lost the day before. So we didn't get a chance to ask you, what did you make of Rory pointing out that Luke Donald has given VR headsets to the European team to kind of simulate the abuse they might get from the crowd at Bethpage?
I like the idea, because I like the idea of Luke Donald basically turning over every stone possible. Look, it's going to be impossible to replicate the experience and the atmosphere that the European team is going to experience at Bethpage Black. I'm not sure the inputs that you can have into the VR devices for the sort of vitriol that's going to be directed at the European team. But I think it just shows, Eamon, the level of detail and the level of preparation. You could say a lot of things about the Europeans if they lose. It can't be because of carelessness. It can't be because of a lack of preparation. I had a conversation with Paul McGinley last week for an interview that aired on Golf Central. It was also on the part of the Golf Channel podcast with Rex and Lav. And he was talking about the continuity that is being brought from this year's team to 2023 and how important it was to have sort of familiar faces, whether it's a Luke Donald, whether it's 11 of the 12 team members returning, whether it's Rasmus Højgaard, who is part of that backroom staff. You would think that these sort of little wrinkles that they can add, just sort of acclimatizing the team to that sort of atmosphere and environment and what they're going to face, is just something on top of the level of comfort that they're already going to be feeling at Bethpage Black as a team. It can't hurt to desensitize, even if it's not going to be a reasonable facsimile for what they're going to face.
Rex, speaking of shaking things up a little bit, the hottest golfer on the planet, non-Scotty Scheffler division, is Alex Noren, who's going to be having a headset instead of 14 clubs. Should the Europeans or maybe even the Americans delay at least one pick, we'll call it a heat index pick, to 2 weeks before the matches, so a guy of Alex Noren's quality is not left to be a vice captain as opposed to a player inside the ropes? It's kind of a new, version of the Billy Horschel rule from back in the day.
Why not even actually change it up beyond that? Why not get to pick your 12, but then kick one guy off the week before
Jeopardy
the
now.
team as well?
Oof, that one's a little tough. Damon, I expect a lot from you. I didn't expect that one coming from you. Damon, I love this idea. What's the holdup on this particular idea? The idea that you can't get a guy fitted? I don't believe that. I believe that whoever the clothing sponsor is for each team, they can come up with a uniform set and a kit to get to each player in plenty of time going into the matches. I think Billy Horschel was a really good example going back all those years. And now you look at let's call it the logistical concern. Between the time the Tour Championship on the PGA Tour ends and the Ryder Cup is played this year, it's 5 weeks. That's probably too many weeks to begin with. But if you are going to look into this, yeah, why not hold a pick until just before the week before? I'm not quite sure it would have changed any of Luke Donald's decisions or Keegan Bradley's decisions, but if you're a captain, wouldn't you want maximum flexibility?
No, because it sounds good in theory, Rex, but captains are very likely to balk at those sort of late audibles. You look at what happened with Luke Donald's team. Besides Rasmus Højgaard, who ended up sneaking in at the buzzer to get one of those automatic spots, the 11 of the 12 team members on Luke Donald's team were already set months in advance, probably as far out as the Open Championship. We all thought Keegan Bradley had the sort of will he or won't he decision to make at the Tour Championship. And, if he wins the FedEx Cup, does he automatically put himself on? If he finishes in the top 5, how does that sort of affect the calculus? What happens a couple days later when Keegan Bradley announces his 6 captain's picks? He said that those other 6 picks had essentially been made weeks in advance, for better or worse. All of these captains like having a plan. They like having a template and then building around it. I think it sounds great in theory. I think it'd be a lot of fun. I just have a hard time believing that the captains would actually go for it.
Ryan, do you think the fact that Keegan is working with a blank slate here is a pro or a con? Because on Luke Donald's side, he can point to any number of successful pairings that worked for him in Rome. Keegan can't point to any pairings from the last Ryder Cup that worked to his advantage, but he does actually have a lot of options to try to piece together. Is that a positive for him, or could it quickly become a negative because he's just searching among too many components?
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I think it's a positive in the sense because they're playing at home. And look, he can certainly refer to what happened a year ago at the President's Cup. I know it's sort of an apples and oranges comparison, but Russell Henley and Scotty Scheffler teamed quite successfully. Sam Burns and Kyle Morikawa teamed quite successfully. He does have a couple of pairings to rely on. If you were traveling overseas, if this was an away Ryder Cup, I would feel differently, that you would want to have some sort of success. And again, going back to the conversation I had with Paul McGinley, the Europeans know what works. So I think a fresh approach, new blood, being able to sort of ride the momentum and the excitement from the home crowd is a benefit for the Americans. Conversely, I also think it is a benefit for the Europeans to have tried and true pairings. You know what works, especially heading into a hostile atmosphere like they're going to experience at Bethpage.